morning and welcome to the Ignite Leadership series. Today I am super excited to have Belinda Jurisic on with me, and she will be sharing some of her stories, some of her highlights, some of her lessons learned, challenges faced and all that good fun stuff. I'll invite Belinda in shortly. In the meantime, I would love to just acknowledge all the wonderful people who come on every week and who share in the conversation, because this is a really set up as a conversation for you. It's not just for me to sort of chat to people. My preference is that we all share in the conversation and get some value from it. And the more we get involved, the more that happens. So I would love it if today you can get involved in the conversation. I'm just going to get my technicalities done here, make sure that I am live. There we go. So do let us know you are there. Do let us know whether you're watching the live stream or the recording, and certainly share your comments, your insights, and any questions that you have throughout this conversation. I've been lucky enough for 20 years now to be recruiting in the IT space, and I have met so many amazing people. And a lot of those people I've seen come into leadership. I've seen some people who've found that leadership's maybe not their preferred. So there have been people who I've seen go on various journeys, and there are people in the industry who just keep coming up as real thought leaders and people who bring a lot of value to others in the industry as well. And so I decided to start this so that I could bring some of these amazing people to you and invite mentors to come and talk to us about real life experience and things that have really occurred for them, things they've learned from that, most importantly. So I think it's really valuable for people from a career perspective, from a leadership and growth perspective. And I know leadership can be really lonely. So it's really good to hear from other leaders. So I love the concept of mentors, mentoring mentors. I think we've all always got something to learn, and you don't need to be a 50-year-old leader in order to bring something. So I always enjoy learning from some of the younger generation as well. So my focus is also going to be moving forward to bring some younger people in to really listen to their views on leadership, their experience on leadership too, which I think is a really important thing for us to share. And as I say, everybody brings something new to the table. I learn something every day from everybody I speak to. So that said, please remember to get involved today. Please let us know you are there. It's much more fun when we know and we can share the conversation. And with that said, I will bring Belinda into the stream. I hope there are people on live. Please do let us know. No comments yet, no pressure, but let us know you're there. Hi, Belinda. How are you? You're on mute at the moment. You need to unmute. Oh.
Sorry, guys. Do you know what? I love live. My internet just crashed.
Oh.
Just as you were introducing me.
Oh, dear. But we've got you, so we're all good.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
The joys of technology. It's funny how much we expect from it these days as well. We just expect things to just work. And
we do.
Yeah.
I forgot that there's 2 other people in the household using it right now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So if you go a little bit wobbly, we'll bear with you. It's all good.
Yeah.
Same goes from my end. So thank you so much for joining us. Would you mind sitting there and smiling sweetly while I say wonderful things about you?
Thank you.
I'm just going to tell people a little bit about your background. So Belinda Jurisic is a veteran channel leader with around 3 decades of achievements in the Australian market and now in Singapore. She's currently Senior Director, Channel Cloud and Service Provider Strategy and Management for Veeam Software. That is a mouthful, and it sounds like a really big and exciting role. She leads a team right across the region. Belinda has mentored many successful people in the IT world, and she's very proud of her own achievements and their achievements, as I've seen some great feedback as well. So fantastic. Her passion passion for what she does, and her drive to consistently grow and to help others is infectious. Belinda is joining me to share some of her highlights of her career, the challenges she's faced in the way along the way, and some of the lessons she's learned, which is, I think, the most important. And Belinda's been recognised as one of the top women in the channel for the past 2 years in a row, and she also won the Victor Achievement Award in 2016. So I'm so glad there are awards like that out there to recognise people's successes and achievements and the value that they bring to the marketplace as well. So welcome, Belinda.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us. I would love to start by asking you what it was, and I love this question because it starts such a great conversation, but what is it that got you into leadership? Were you always going to be in leadership? Was it something you aspired to, or did someone tap you on the shoulder? What happened for you?
Yeah, so definitely was the tap on the shoulder. I had no real idea of what I wanted to do long term. I got into channel or into IT essentially is my first job when I was 19 in a government funded traineeship with a reseller in Sydney actually, and would spend 3 days in the office and 2 days going to TAFE to learn how to type and all those sorts of things. And
we've frozen. Okay, Belinda will be back with us in a moment. I'm not sure if she's frozen at your end as well. That hasn't happened before, so I'm not sure what's going on. Are you there?
Sorry, Rebecca.
There she is. Okay, got you. Sorry. You were saying tap on the shoulder. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I will get them to see what's going on with the internet. It's been perfectly fine, of course, all day until now. So worked my way through a few different companies and eventually ended up actually in Compaq. One of the things that I definitely knew that I loved was channel. And so I worked in, all my roles have been in the IT business, both reseller, distributor, and then joined Compaq here in Melbourne. And I was a channel manager for a couple of years, and a role came up actually managing the programs team in Compaq and then HP, obviously, because HP bought Compaq. And I sort of saw the role and thought that would be really interesting because I liked the idea of bringing that channel sales, ethos and thought process into the channel programs and marketing team. And then my manager at the time actually did tap me on the shoulder and said, "Why don't you go for it?" And so that was kind of the start of it. That was my first leadership role, managing really diverse group of people actually, because everyone in the team did a different job. And I didn't know their jobs. Like they all individually did something differently to support the channel team for HP. So that was a really good learning experience as a leader, to be someone who couldn't do their job, yet was there just to really encourage and develop and help them grow, and I suppose really make sure we got the best out of what we could from those team members.
Yeah, wow, that is a really great entry point, and something that I think happens a lot is leaders are sort of put into a leadership role and just kind of go do it. You often put the person who's kind of best at that function into a leadership role. So what you did was actually go into what I would describe as a proper leadership environment where you had to actually lead. Did you find that challenging? What were some of the things that came up for you that were a challenge?
The one thing I always remember is I got the role and a person in the team had applied previously for it and they didn't get it. So my very first week I had a resignation. And so it was definitely, straight in there, really having to think on my feet and be really upfront with everyone in the team that I didn't know what they did individually. I knew what they had to deliver as a business, but I, had never done their role. So it was just a really good learning experience to, like you said, I went into it saying that I wouldn't be here as the best program manager leader, I was bringing in the skills that I had and my thought process around channel and sales and what we need to do in channel. That's what I was going to bring to the table. And if you wanted something as a different perspective, then I would be the right person. But if you really wanted like more of a marketing style person, then that was not what I would be able to deliver. So I think that really helped, because I suppose it was a bit of a fear factor, right? Like when you're going for your first management role, you kind of don't really want to be the one who doesn't get the job. And so I went in there with this whole headspace of, well, if they want what I've got to give, then they will choose me. And so if they don't choose me, then I could be off the hook and it was all okay.
Yeah. I love that. And that speaks to, and I know these words are a little bit sort of cliche at the moment, or can be seen as a little bit cliche at the moment because they're commonly used, but authenticity is a powerful thing. It's really about being authentic, and then you don't end up in the wrong job. Because this is what I tell people all the time is, even in their LinkedIn profiles, be real, be who you are, talk about who you work best with, talk about how you like to operate, and you'll end up working with the right people in the right roles. And I think that's really it's a great place to start, right? If you want to be successful. Have you frozen again? I think we've frozen again. So, sorry, did you catch what I just said?
No. I'm going to be the worst person you interview now, Rebecca.
Okay, don't let it throw us. We're not going to let it throw us. We're all good.
So, I've got my husband running through the house to turn everybody else off so that I can have all the internet.
I was just saying, now I've forgotten what I was saying. Well, anyway, so we were talking about authenticity and how important that is, and how you end up, in the right role with the right people. And the other thing that just came up from what you were saying was vulnerability, being honest that you don't, that what you can bring and what you are there to help achieve, and then perhaps what you're not. Did you have mentors who helped you with the transition? We've done it again. Sorry, guys. If you're there watching, please stick with us. We're in and out a little bit here, and hopefully Belinda's going to be back any second now.
Oh, Rebecca, I am so sorry.
That's okay. It's not your fault. It's technology. So I just asked you the question, did you have mentors who helped you with the transition? Was that an important part to you or not?
Yeah, I probably not. I didn't have like a dedicated mentor for most of my early career, but I definitely knew to have the right supporters and people that I felt really comfortable going and asking advice of. And I've never hesitated to show if I don't know something, and show that vulnerability, because I think that you can't learn unless you're really willing to be open to sharing what you do and don't know, and being able to take advice from other people. So I think I did go into a formal mentor program once, and I was matched with someone, and it just didn't really work for me. I think that was an external program where they were trying to match, and do you know what? They matched me with a school teacher, and I was just really like, I don't know what I'm going to get from this. And that was, as I said, really early in my career. And so I probably didn't go down the path of getting mentors early. However, I've always surrounded myself with people that I can go to for advice, and also made sure they're from very different backgrounds. I think about when I was thinking about joining Veeam, I actually went to, I think it was like 3 different people in the IT industry that were all very different, and asked for their advice. And because they knew me differently, so I knew that I would get very different views from each of them based on how they viewed me and what I was strong at. And so that's probably what I've predominantly done.
Yeah. Well, that's really powerful. And I think the trick is to be open to the feedback and actually take it on and use it. Sometimes feedback is not necessarily worthy feedback, but most of the time being open to it and learning from it is really powerful. Thank you. I now know that Hans Baer is on, because he let me know that he was frozen as well. So I haven't heard any comments from the audience yet. So I would love you to get involved, guys. Please let us know you are there. We would love to talk to you. I think that's a really important reason why I bring these lives on. So, Belinda, in terms of how you have built successful teams, because obviously a lot of your success is based on the people that you hire and the people that you work with. What are some of the key things that you think are important when you're bringing people into your environment?
I definitely look for very diverse team. So I think about the different characters in the team and the different personalities, and how you can have quite a mix of people who really do feed off each other. I also try to get people that will challenge me, because I'm quite strong-minded and strong-willed, and I have opinions. And so generally I'll also look for someone who takes me a little bit out of my comfort zone. I do very deliberately think about, okay, this is going to actually be a lot of hard work, but it'll be worth it in the end, for the fact that that person will challenge me and make me think, more broadly about things. And as soon as I bring people on board, the first thing I say to them is, please just don't always agree with me. Like, I actually don't think I know everything. And if I'm giving you an opinion, it's because I'm looking for you to tell me if you think I'm wrong, or if there's a different way to look at something. So I definitely do prefer a more challenging people in my team, like people that will challenge each other, potentially, a little bit of conflict. Not too easy. It's good to have a few people in your team that you just get on really well with, and that you can rely on them, and all those things. But I think, if anything, it's really, and you can do it with the 4-box, when you kind of got your drivers and your supporters and all those different types of people, you kind of think about what the personality types are, and just really having that diverse group.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you, when you do bring people into the team, do you utilize the rest of the team to make those decisions as well? And have you ever sort of vetoed anyone coming in, as in said, well, actually, yes, they are someone I want in the team, or the other way around?
Look, generally, if it's my own team, then it's my decision. I look for guidance, but I definitely go with me as the final decision maker, because you can't blame anyone else. If you've made a wrong call, then you're the one who has to rectify that situation or anything. So generally, it is up to me. There are definitely times where I now interview other people for different countries for roles within the channel team. And there's definitely been times where I've kind of thought, oh, that person maybe doesn't suit me, but that's okay. It suits the hiring manager. So, so I really do have to think about that a lot more now, because I do a lot of interviews now, which are actually for other teams in other countries. And so then there's also the cultural makeup as well. So at the moment I'm interviewing for a particular country, and totally different, culturally totally different, so I look at, how I would rate all the people, and my natural instinct is to go with the one that I really gelled with really quickly, but culturally, is that right thing for the rest of the team? And so I definitely now have to take a very different perspective.
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful point, because I think when you're hiring, if you do hire people that you just gel with, then you can be missing, certain criteria and so forth. And so do you do you actually write down your criteria, or do you use a sort of scoring method yourself in terms of how you would do that?
I do only for the skills. So when I think about the skills that I need, I actually weigh up what is a must-have versus a nice-to-have. And then aptitude, attitude, all those things can far outweigh skill at times. So I definitely do that. But I also very strongly go with gut feel, which, obviously doesn't always work. However, it's a big one for me, is my gut feel, and how I gel with the person in the first 5 to 10 minutes is pretty important to me as well. And, I say that I look for people that are, maybe a little bit different to me and all those sorts of things, but some of my best hires have also been the people that I've just sat down with and gone, wow, like I want to work with you. You know, you're the sort of person that I really feel is going to not just be great at your job, but you're going to be great to work with. You know, I think I shared a story with you, and one of my interviews, and one person who worked for me and is now a friend, that was based over meeting in a hotel lobby. And after about 5 minutes, it was like, hey, let's get a champagne, because I knew straight away when I met the person, like they'd come highly recommended. So it wasn't as though they weren't the right person for the job. They'd come highly recommended, but then as soon as we met, it was like, okay, she has to be part of my team. So I think that's really powerful to also really go with your gut feel. Like I said, doesn't always work, but when it does, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very good when those things happen. And I know you've mentored a number of, and I know not necessarily to call it out, but you've mentored a number of successful women in the industry yourself, or who you've sort of worked with. I'm guessing that's one of them that you're talking about there. And I was about to just segue into the diversity question, and Hans has beat me to it. So he would love to hear your experience in gender diversity across the region, because I was talking to someone yesterday actually who was talking about gender diversity in the US and how important it is, and it seems to be a lot easier to achieve the diversity numbers that they're looking for in the US than it is in Asia Pacific. What's your thoughts on that? Oh, we're frozen again. Right at the poignant question. She's going to be back. I'll just keep smiling until she gets here. I'd love anyone else, if you've got any questions to ask, please throw them into the comments. Thank you for yours, Hans. We're back. How much of my question did you hear this time?
You asked about gender diversity in cross-cultural.
I did. There you go. Yeah.
Do you know what? That was an eye-opener for me. I'm not going to name the country, but I remember when I first moved to Singapore, and I went to one of our countries, and I went to an event, and I looked around, and I went to my boss and I said, I'm the only woman here. And he's like, now's not the time, Belle. Now's not the time. Just relax. You know, there's things you need to realize. And so I actually did spend a lot of time learning about different countries. And that was really important for me to do, because I went into Singapore, and an Australian female in Singapore doesn't necessarily gel straight away with particular countries. So I do find that it is still quite a discussion in some countries. I mean, we've done some great work in India in particular, where we have our Women in Green chapter in India is really, really strong. And ever since, in the last 2 years, I've seen the increase in women in that team just go through the roof. The channel team now is actually all females other than a male manager. So it's like, okay, I keep telling him I think you need to think about your diversity now, because
diversity, yeah.
Oh, it is, because he hired a woman into his team, and then he was like, oh, really, you know, very different perspective. And then he got another one, and then he was like, oh, that's it, that's all I want. I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can't go the other way and say that you're only going to employ females now. So, you know, I'm really proud that we are getting there in different countries, but you can't like come in like a truck and tell them what to do. It's just, it has to be very, very subtle.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it is an interesting conversation. And so have you found, I mean, over the years, obviously it's changed, you being a woman in tech, are you seeing women come into different parts of the industry now, or are they still tending to be in a similar sort of?
I definitely find a lot more females in channel still than I do in direct sales roles. And I'm talking probably more broadly outside of Australia, but definitely more females in channel than direct sales. We do have a few women in our SE organisation, which is great to see. I think that some of the things that, you know, like I moved to Singapore just over 2 years ago, and James Henderson from Channel Asia, he actually moved at the same time, and he's done some great work in building out, you know, the Women in ICT awards in Singapore, and really trying to establish that base. And he's done a really good job in in doing that for the whole of like Southeast Asia and getting a lot more visibility to, you know, really being able to pinpoint women and highlight women for their skills and what they bring to the table. And that hadn't been done before. And I think that was really fantastic. I do actually remember that I went to the launch of that event, and it was a real eye-opener for me, because I literally, it was my first week in Singapore, and I went to the launch, and first of all, no one actually drank any wine at the table at lunch, which I kind of went, oh, okay, I've got a lot to learn, and everyone left as soon as lunch was over, but you know, there wasn't as much networking. I suppose is what I'm getting at. Like, I felt like it was just really, really different to what I was used to. Whereas then when we've had the events, it's really taking off. I'm a judge for that event, and it takes me hours to go through all of the submissions, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so is there more comfort in the networking side of things as well now? Do you think, is it something that people, is it changing, or is it still culturally different?
I must say, I went to when I won the Victor Award at ARN 5 years ago or whatever it was. We actually saw Vicky Bacter was up on stage, and she talked about the Champagne Club in Singapore, and then myself and another 5 women went and had drinks after Victor, and we started a similar thing from that. And then when I got to Singapore, I thought, oh wow, you know, it's going to be this Champagne Club. It's probably still very much expat women, a little bit more than local. I think that that's something that I really miss, is probably being able to have that type of networking with some of the local women, like I do internally, but not so much externally. And that's something that I just have to really have to focus on doing. It's not a natural thing, and COVID hasn't helped, right? It's COVID's fine for keeping your network and, you know, making sure that you stay in touch with people, but really establishing a network to begin with, that's really, really hard to do when you can't see people and have that interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A real challenge. I think we've frozen again. We have. Now I'm seeing that there are at least 14 people on, and Hans has been commenting. So has anybody else got any questions they would like to ask Belinda while we have her cornered, about the industry, about her career, anything you like? I have another question for you. What have been the key highlights for you in your career so far?
The key highlights have definitely been around making some big decisions and taking some massive risks. The first one I did was actually when I was like 25. I did move to Melbourne, so kind of put my hand up for a role in the company I was working for. They didn't have an office in Melbourne, and I was like, I grew up in northern New South Wales, lived in Sydney for 5 years, and I just didn't love it. And he was talking about opening a branch, and I was like, can I do that? And I moved to Melbourne, and that was a massive risk, but, you know, ended up living here for 20 years, and my career really took off after coming into Melbourne and really kind of developing some strong connections, and then getting into HP, etc. And then the next career highlight was being able to put my hand up for the role in Singapore. That was quite nerve-wracking. It didn't come at the right time for me at all. So I'm married to a man who has 3 children, and luckily they're adults, but the last one, the youngest, was actually still at last year of high school when the role came up, and it was a case of, so do I go for the role, and do I move, or what happens? And we talked about it, and I put my hand up for the opportunity to interview for the role, and was successful, and had to move to Singapore pretty much on my own. So I shared custody of my husband with my stepson, so he actually flew back here every couple of weeks, so luckily pre-COVID, so he would spend a few weeks with me, then he'd come back here, and it was a really, really tough first 6 months in Singapore, because I really rely on him for that support, so it and especially being in a new city, living on my own for the first time in a long time, but that was hands down the best decision I've made. The learnings that I've had now living in Singapore and working across many countries, just the best decision ever, so I think that it really highlighted to me that, you read these stories of people who say, the biggest moves in your life never come when you want them to. And it's like, that's so, so true.
Yeah. Yeah. And they say, on the other side of challenge is more success or happiness. So, yeah. And so what are the tips you would share with people in terms of feeling confident enough to make, because that's the challenge, isn't it, is actually, how do you build the confidence to make those decisions and to take that plunge? And it's kind of a little bit like stepping into the darkness in a way. What have you got any advice as to how people can overcome that from a mindset perspective?
Yeah, I don't know if this would work for everyone, but I 100% once I've made a decision, I go, that's it. There can be no regrets. You either make it work or it doesn't, and then you backtrack and you work out how to make it work, right? And so I'm just fully committed. Once I've made that decision I was going to go for the role, then it was a case of now just focus on getting the role. When I interviewed for the role, I took exactly the same premise of what I did for my very first leadership role. I actually interviewed with my boss and I said to him, here are the things that I bring to you. So this is what you buy. This is what I need you to help me build. Yeah. And I actually had it on the slide deck. This is what you get when you buy me for this role, and this is what you as my leader will need to help me build, that I'm willing to build and to learn. And he, we still talk about that. Then I knew that if that's what he was looking for, then it would be me. And of course, he left me hanging for months, which wasn't great. But, it was a fantastic experience to go through that process too, right? Really put myself out of the comfort zone and put myself out there for a role that, I knew that I didn't have all of the experience that someone else could bring to the table. And so I had to be upfront and honest about that, but tell him how I would get that. What would I do and what would I commit to and what would I need from him to be able to do that? And so, that's my advice to people. And that actually, I say that I didn't have necessarily mentors all through my life, but I had one for the last couple of years. And he said to me that sometimes it's really good to actually sit down and go, well, this is what I'm good at, and here's the gap to where I want to be, and then you do build that plan. So I took that whole thought process into the interview, and I now pass that advice on to my mentees as well. So I think take the chances that come to you and just make them work. And if they don't, do not be concerned about saying I made a mistake. I mean, I had a job that lasted like 6 months. I made a mistake, and everyone does it. Everyone makes mistakes in their career at some stage. So it's really just about owning that and fix it. You've got no one else to blame but yourself if you don't get yourself out of that situation. Yeah,
and never die wondering.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Tracy says, Tracy Sherma, thank you, Tracy, says that's amazing advice. Zena Skelly saying the same thing. So thank you for that. My final question, I haven't got any questions from the audience. They must, I think, a little shy today. But thank you for your comments, everybody. I would love to ask you if you could only share one piece of advice to a leader coming through, and you have to put aside the piece you just shared because that's I'm probably asking this too late. What would that one piece of advice be?
I actually had to give it just the other day. I have a new person in my team and he's coming in for his first leadership role, and I gave him the first task of running, thinking about a new project, and he went straight in and he came up with all the answers. And I said, no, now you're a leader. I need you to actually use the people around you and get the best out of the people around you to be able to deliver. It's not all about you as an individual contributor anymore. It's actually about the people that you're leading. And most importantly, you have to build up the relationship with those people that they want to be led by you. Like that's the first thing. And I actually have this HBR article I'm about to send to him, which talks about leadership and, 4 C's of leadership. And just, I think that if you're first-time leader, just know that you have to learn, and you just need to really embrace the opportunity to learn what that is, and you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it if you invest the time and energy in being able to learn how to be a good leader.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. Thank you. Aubrey, hi Aubrey, how are you? He says he likes the advice that you shared. This is what you buy as part of your presentation. That's awesome. So thank you. We've actually hit 12 o'clock. Hans has said that is one of the hardest leaps to make. Yeah, it is, from individual contributor to leadership.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's just so different. I think that's putting that in perspective is really important. Thank you, James. They're all appearing now. I'm glad we know you're there. We weren't alone. Thank you. James Wright says, great discussion. So look, really appreciate your time, Belinda. It's been brilliant. You've shared some absolute morsels of gold. Yeah, I loved having you on. I do have some offline requests that I tend to, I want to record with people sort of to drill down a little more. And I'd love to perhaps drill down on that transition from individual contributor to leadership conversation with you at some point, to put into the private membership. So thank you again. Been a pleasure.
Thank you. I'm sorry about my bad internet. Welcome to Melbourne.
I was going to say, yeah, welcome back to Melbourne for a couple of months. Yeah.
No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. It's too cold.
Oh, okay, right. Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, lovely to have you, and enjoy the rest of your stay. And thank you very much to everyone who's been on. It was wonderful to have everybody here. Shanthi and Ishan, Zena, Hans, James, Aubrey, Tracy, thanks again. All right. And I will see you very, very soon. I don't have a guest for next week, so it may be a surprise, or I may come on alone and we can have a conversation about leadership. So I'll let everybody know. All right. Take care.